Okay, so I just did a 10-minute live video with no audio. That was a ton of fun. So sorry about that. Tonight is, I want to know what side of the stats is your child. And I'm hoping audio is working now. Please let me know right away if audio is not working. But what we're going to be looking at is reading, writing, math, and graduation rates in the school division. So my name is Adam Hicks. I am a school board trustee in Regina, Saskatchewan, and I represent the southwest area of the city. So I have 8 schools that I represent in the southwest area of Regina, Saskatchewan. So sorry about those sound issues, and thanks for tuning in again here. I'm just going to make sure live is on. It looks like it's back on. Okay. So what we're going to be taking a look at is the assessment strategy, and what this is essentially it's actually kind of neat. So because we don't want to over evaluate every single student, the strategy is to keep evaluations across different grade levels so that students don't feel that pressure every single year. So there's a strategy about when you assess students and what grades and what level do you assess them at. So as you can see in this assessment strategy, as you can see in the assessment strategy, there's an early years evaluation. And on the early years evaluation, I'm going to show you what those stats look like. And then grade 1, 2, and 3 all have an assessment in reading. And so grade 1, 2, and 3 on that reading level and the main reason for that is because it's important with those reading levels is students at that time are just learning to actually read. After grade 3, they're reading to learn. And that's an important fact is that they need to make sure that if you don't have reading down by grade 3, you're going to be struggling year after year after year. And so then we move into writing, grades 4 and grade 7, math, grade 2, grade 5, and grade 8. And from there, Cat 4. So what Cat 4 is, it's the 4th version of the Canadian Achievement Test. And Canadian Achievement Test, it's just the 4th version. What they can measure is reading, language, spelling, and mathematics. And so those are grade 6. It's a consistent one across Canada that's done. And I'm excited to see what some of those stats look like. And then for high school, I'm just going to move my face out of here. For high school, obviously, there's credits, so it's all percentage-based, and then graduation rates. And graduation rates we're gonna talk about in a second. So I'm actually curious, so if I think about my son would come home and he's in grade 2 right now. He wouldn't tell us what happens during the day. I have to poke and prod him, and we still barely find out. And he's a boy that just doesn't like talking about a lot of that. But my daughter, she would be another whole case. I would learn about every assessment, and I know we're going to be learning about everything that she's doing. So I'm curious about, do your child talk, do you know about some of these assessments, and what do your kids think? And it'd be curious to find out on some of that. Okay, so what we're going to get into is early years assessments. And with the early years assessments, what this looks at is the last 3 years when children come to our division, are they set up for success? Or are they ready to learn? Have they met the minimum requirements? And when we look at that, 76% you can see are ready to learn. And what's a little more concerning is that 17% require some level of support, and 7% of our students require significant support. So there's a number of initiatives that our division is moving towards and looking at rolling out and helping with. And some of those obviously are looking at summer programs before kids get in, and there's a lot of things that we can do to help. What's important to look at this is we also, in most of our stats, separate out Indigenous students versus non-Indigenous students because they are a key focus in our division to improve their success rates. And so most of our stats that you will see it as separated out as non-Indigenous, Indigenous, and all students represented by the 3 lines. So if we move on to the next level is reading. And with reading, this is based, I'm going to move my face out of here again, based on the last 4 years, and it's grade 1 to 3. And so if we look at this, 66%, so if you look at that blue line, 66% of students meet or achieve the benchmarks on reading. What that means is if I go into my son's, or if we go into a classroom and we pull out 10 kids, essentially just over 3 of those will not be meeting that benchmark and will need some extra help. And what's a little worrisome, actually a lot worrisome, is the Indigenous number. So that 45%, you see that red line on there, 2017, that 45%. That 45% means that over half of our Indigenous students are not meeting the basic meeting the grade level requirements for grades 1 to 3. And I want to tell you that I appreciate feedback and comments, and I do take them seriously, and I use them to learn and discover discover issues that I may not know. But I have found that a lot of people don't publicly like to announce some of that stuff. So what I want to do is, if you are sending me comments, I'm going to start asking people if I can start sharing them. And it's all right if you don't want to. So with this next one, I took her name off and I took her profile picture off, but she's allowing me to share her comments. And I think it's probably intuitive of what a lot of people would be thinking. So here are some of the comments, or one of the comments I received recently. She says that she sends me a graph, and she says we were sent this graph from the school community council with a note that the school board is happy with these results, but there's room for improvement. And she's asking, are we really happy with less than 50% of Indigenous students reading at grade level? She's shocked. This is Canada, and this shouldn't be happening here. And I'll tell you what, I completely agree with this. So if we go back to this chart, this is the chart she's referring to, where it says 45%, that red line there, 45% are just at the benchmark or above it. And it comes down to it is I completely agree. If we take this as acceptable, and it's actually, let me back up. It's the reason I'm doing these videos. I'm doing these videos because that knowledge is power, and if more of us know about this, the more that we can do something to fix this. So let's look at, I want to finish with, I just cut out some of the pieces that she sent me, so I want to read the rest of it. I really feel like the first thing we can do is refuse to accept complacency and hold our leaders accountable, which was my whole reasoning for messaging you. She also mentions her MLA because funding cuts directly affect our children, and she would love to say throwing money at the issue will fix it, but she knows that it goes deeper than that. The thing that hit me was the graph represents kids in grades 1 to 3. If they aren't getting a good foundation, how can we expect them to thrive later on? We want to continue to see if those grade 12 graduations rise. We need to start them off on the right foot. And she has a last comment here. I know I've decided that I refuse to be complacent about this, and if there's anything I can do, please let me know. I believe all of our children deserve to finish grade 12 at the same time, at the same level as one another. And I thank this lady for sending this to me, and I completely agree in that if we don't talk about it, that's even worse than actually talking about it. So I know it's hard looking at some of these facts and these data sometimes, but I really appreciate the comments and the input, and I want to try to cover some of these issues moving forward too. So thanks to her for allowing me to post her comments as well. Okay, so French immersion. So I want to cover this one because my son also goes to French immersion, and we have, I don't know if you know, we have about 16% of our school population is in French immersion, which is a huge number of students. And so French immersion levels are assessed, and they've actually gone down from 2 years ago, and they're back down to 65%. So again, if I went to my son's classroom, my son goes to Massey, Cole Massey School. If I go into a Cole Massey, pick out 10 kids out of his classroom, there is going to be just over 3 of them that unfortunately are not meeting the grade level requirements. But I know our division is focused on this, and I know our teachers, and I'm going to give a shout out to Madame Spazoff, who took my son last year into a special reading group and helped him get back up to meeting grade level requirements. He was one of those students not meeting those requirements. So I know there are so many dedicated teachers in our division that are committed to changing these stats, and I want to do everything that I can to help support the progress on that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about, and so by the way, if you have comments about the reading, I think reading is one of the most important, especially the lower ones. If you think it's important, put a comment on there. I'd be interested to see what you think. And I'm hoping everybody can hear this. I'm hoping the audio is fixed as well. Okay, we're going to talk about writing. So writing is, if you can see on this chart, grade 4 is on the left-hand side and grade 7 is on the other. And again, we separate out Indigenous students and non-Indigenous. So what this looks like is The blue line represents the average student, so 66% of students at grade 4 are meeting the requirements of writing. And what's positive though is as they move through the grades and get up to grade 7, more students have increased their writing. Again, I know we can do better and there's things, but it is nice to know that at least students aren't going down from grade 4. So when they reach grade 7, they are improving their writing skills and coming up to the benchmark of what their grade level requires. So that's a good thing here. Next on the list is graduation rates. So what we're going to, actually, before I get into graduation rates, I want to talk about the 2 ways we measure graduation. So the first one is 3-year on-time graduation. So what that means is when a student enters grade 10, and at the moment they enter grade 10, we start a clock. In the stats, a clock is started, and if they finish within the 3 years, which is the typical amount of time, we track that as a success. What we also track, though, is the 5-year graduation rate, and that's tracked separately. So that means students that maybe had to work, take some time off, whatever reason they extended that was, is we track also a 5-year extended graduation rate. So the first numbers I'm going to be showing you is, got to flip the screen here. Okay, first one is the 3-year graduation rate. So I know there's a lot of numbers on here. What I really want to focus on is the current year. So it has 2015, 2016, and 2017. And if we look at 2017, you can see on average, 79% of our students, it's the white bar, are graduating on time. So that means they start grade 12, 8 out of 10 of our students, so every 8 students that you see in our high schools are finishing within exactly 3 years, or within the 3-year timeline. When you look at it though, and look at First Nations on the very far right side, they're at 53%. So this is a success story in that from last year to this year, we have gone from 42% to 53%. So that's an 11% increase, which is amazing news. And it was in the Leader Post. It was in, I think it was CBC covered it as well. This is a success and something to recognize. However, 53% is still low. So that means if you're an Indigenous student walking into one of our high schools, you have a 50-50 chance of graduating on time based on our stats. And when you put it like that, I think this is a scary number. But our administration is working extremely hard at addressing this and helping with this. We now have Indigenous students or Indigenous advocates at every one of our high schools, and their sole job is to help Indigenous students and create that culture of belonging and helping them succeed and focus on their success. So every one of our high schools has an Indigenous advocate, which is something that I'm impressed about with our division. And the black ones, just for reference here, the black is the provincial average. So if you look even at the average across the province at 76%, our division is above the provincial average, which is great news. I wanted to show the stats over the last 7 years. And so if I take my face out of there, it goes from 2010 to 2017. And if you can see, this is a positive trend moving upwards. There's some dips and things in here, but if you look at that blue line, in the last 7 years, we were down at 69% of our students were graduating on time, and it is now up to 79% last year, which is an amazing increase. Even First Nation students, they hit a rock bottom at 27%. So 1 out of every 3 of our First Nation students, 3 out of every 10 of our First Nation students were graduating on time. That is now at 53%. So these trends, I am hoping, and I know, talking with our administration and hearing some of the stuff at our board meetings, in that this is a focus, and I hope and I sincerely believe that these numbers will continue going up, which is amazing news. So if we look at the next one here, 5-year graduation rate. So this is what I mentioned, obviously. So I'm going to go back to the 3-year one. All of these numbers, if we look at the average, 79% graduating within the 3-year time limit. If you look at the 5-year graduation rate, obviously it should be increased. But same thing, trends are going up within the 5-year graduation rate. And this is us making sure that even if students don't finish within the 3 years, there's a focus and a strategy to keep them in schools, to finish their high school degree. And it's just, stats are just tracking them for an extra 2 years. Okay, so now we're going to move on to math. And math is I left math for the end. I know this is a subject I've actually got quite a few emails over. I have a citizen that emails me studies all the time, and I look at as many as I possibly can, and there's so much to learn about it, so many studies out there. But I think the main reason is math has come up is because the system has changed. So even from when I was in high school, what was it, 13, 14 years ago, when I was in high school, how I learned is significantly different than how students learn now. And I truly don't know how my son is being taught math. I didn't learn that way, so it is different, and having change and difference is tricky. So when we look at this, it's important to understand that to have that reflection based on your history, but the times are changing, and we have to ensure that our children are supported within the system that is currently operated within Saskatchewan. So I don't actually have any math numbers for you right now, but I will tell you the new Cat 4 will be administered to all grade 6s essentially next month. And so grade 6s, the way this works is that it's grade 6s, or sorry, in grade 6, you have to hit a certain age limit as well. So we should have that data. Once I do have it, I'll do another video on it. And then mathematics outcomes will be pulled up, and we will eventually get that data for grades 2, 5, and 8. But currently, I don't have it within our division. And Pisa. I wanted to talk about Pisa. So Pisa is you can see what it is, stands for Program for International Student Assessment. It's what hits the news every single time it is announced. And this is a study or an international assessment that is done, and it's standardized across all countries. And so last year, 72 countries participated, and then we can take our results and compare it to other countries and other provinces. So within our province, we had close to 1,900 students take this test, and they're chosen at random, completely randomized. And within our division, we represented 18% of all of those Saskatchewan students. So we had 336 of our students taking this test. And what this is 15-year-olds in grade 10 taking the test. So if you're in grade 10, at you're at the age of 15, you have a chance of being randomly selected to take this Pisa exam. It's a 2-hour multiple choice exam, and so it's not a full day, it's just 2 hours, but again, it's standardized. Unfortunately, though, one of the main things that comes up is what does our data as a division look like across the 28 school divisions? And with the 28 school divisions, we have no way of pulling our data out. They just don't provide that to us. So what I tell citizens or people that are commenting on it is that it is a pretty good estimation that the data for Saskatchewan is representative of the data for the rest of the province, or for our school division is what I'm trying to get at. And so if I had somebody just actually recently that hit home. They said their grade 7 teacher, so it was the mom talking to me. The grade 7 teacher sent home a note to the parents saying that they wanted the grade 7 students to review the times table starting at 1 times 1 and 2 times 2 and going up from there. And at grade 7, that is extremely concerning. And I've heard that from more parents. But when you hear that and teachers asking students to review just the most basic things, that it is concerning. I can see why parents have some concerns over this. So what I've done is I put together a proposed resolution. And what this means is the Saskatchewan School Boards Association. So when all 28 school boards get together, they're able to propose resolutions. And what that means is all 28 school boards would support and stand behind whatever is decided. And so we have a lot stronger voice than just one school board when all 28 can come together with an issue. And so my resolution I wanted to get passed was, be it resolved that the Saskatchewan School Boards Association Executive request that the Government of Saskatchewan evaluate the effectiveness of the current Saskatchewan math curriculum. Now, the reason I submitted this is because it's been 10 years since it's been formally introduced across Saskatchewan, the new curriculum. And most of you know it as math makes sense. I don't think that's a great term. But the idea behind it is it is a good idea. There's a lot of data behind that it could be a successful program, or that it is. And essentially what it is rather than going from all memorization and students working alone, The flip is that you work collaboratively, and you still have memorization as a part of it, but you work collaboratively to come up with your own strategy of how to solve problems and math problems. And so I've had a ton of citizens bring concerns up about this and with the scores. And I wanted to quickly talk about, I'm just pulling it up on my screen here. I wanted to talk about what those stats were within the last 2 years, or within the last 2 assessments. And so if we look, so I wrote on my little whiteboard here, from August 2012 to the new assessment that was done in 2015, and all of the announcements were happened last year after everybody assessed it. I'm going to break this out into Saskatchewan. So I'm just talking about math too, because this is what I was focused on with that resolution. So with Saskatchewan, we ranked, what was our ranking? 506 points in 2012. So our average student had 506 points in the math assessment. And the Canadian average was 518 in 2012, which leaves a difference of 12 points in between the Saskatchewan average to the Canadian average. Now in 2015, this is where a lot of concerns have come up. We went from, we were sixth place, or sixth of the province, to last place. We were the bottom of the assessment, not just in math, but actually across all the assessments. And math is the one I was focusing on, though. So we had a score, our score dropped to an average of 484 points. When the Canadian average stayed very consistent, it dropped a little bit at 516 points. So this is a difference of 32 points, which is a major change, and obviously is points for concern. So I see why people are very concerned, and that's why I'm concerned as well. Another point of interest is that from the highest, so we were the lowest rank, but from the lowest rank to the highest rank, it's actually a 70-point difference. So 554 was the highest province's average on math versus our 484. So when you look at the point difference between the lowest to the highest, there is room for improvement. And I'm not saying we have to rewrite the entire math program. All that I was asking for in this, and I will continue being an advocate for this, is I just want a study done. I want for us to sit down at the tables, to really analyze this, and to at least acknowledge that there is a potential issue. And especially with our children, we only get one shot at this. Our children only get one shot from math. And so it is important that we take this seriously. And so that is essentially the assessment strategy. So like I mentioned, is at the start, is the assessment strategy is we're assessing children on different skills throughout the years. And it's important for us to do that. So if you have comments, please include the comments on this. Click like or share so that I know that you appreciate these videos. I want to continue them. I will be having another one next Sunday. I have a good topic. I'll announce it Sunday morning. The reason I'm announcing it Sunday morning is because they typically might change. So I'll leave it till Sunday morning. But thanks a lot for tuning in. And if you have any questions or concerns, please let me know, because it really helps me focus on where I need to do my research too. So thanks a lot for tuning in. Take care.